She's a former lawyer. She's been full-time volunteer for over 20 years. She's president of the National Council of Social Service since 2018. She's Anita Pham. Welcome, Anita. Welcome to Inconvenient Questions.
Hi, Ida. Nice to see you again.
We are in the election season, and this time we see many individuals coming from humble backgrounds being fielded as candidates for our general election. I suppose this general assumption is that if one comes from a humble background, one is better able to empathize and connect with the needy and the community. Anita, you are president of NCSS and you come from a well-to-do family. Are you able to empathize with the needs of the less privileged in Singapore?
I think I can to a certain degree, but it's nothing more than experiencing it yourself. I mean, for sure, I grew up in a household and a family where we didn't see that firsthand. And it's honestly, since the time that I started volunteering, that I became far more aware and far more empathetic to the needs of those around me who are just having greater challenges. I'll be the first one to say that, you know, I was thoroughly self-absorbed when I was growing up. These things never occurred to me. It didn't crossed my mind at all. And it was really in the mid-1990s when I started volunteering that I started getting a sense and a glimpse of how others lived. I was very blessed that I came from a school, I was from Marymount Convent, where my classmates came from all walks of life. So it wasn't, you know, predominantly classmates who came from privileged backgrounds, as they call it, but they came from everywhere. And because of that, there was always that awareness when I was growing up that we came from different backgrounds. But when I started volunteering and really seeing, you know, what I discover and call the more jialat cases where there were folks who were really in situations which were so challenging. For example, you might have a family who has more than one child with special needs. They might have 3 or 4 kids with special needs, and they live in either a 1 or 2 bedroom flat. And you see how the challenges they have that they're facing, they're extraordinary. So I really think that it was actually at that point when I started volunteering that I started being more aware that there were folks in Singapore who really had challenges, not only financial challenges, social challenges, all sorts. And it's funny, you know, because most times it's not just one thing. It's many, many things that hits a family at the same time. So it really was through volunteering that it opened my eyes to a different
So what made
Singapore
you want
world.
to volunteer in the first place?
Actually, it's funny because it wasn't a question of me wanting to. It was because one day I got a phone call from my mum's good friend, and this is Mrs. Liana Temba, who is Paul Anand Temba's mum. And she rang up and she said, hey, you know, my brother who used to be the legal advisor of AWA, he's passed away and we need a legal advisor. And I was at the stage of my career, I'd just become a junior partner in a law firm. So that gave me a little more latitude in terms of timing. And I said, okay, it sort of appealed to my sense of being able to give back at some stage. And that introduced me to the world of volunteering. So it wasn't me going out there to look for it, it found me.
And from a one-time volunteering effort, it became a more than 20-year journey as a full-time volunteer.
Yeah, and I've never been happier. It maybe, you know, the joke I say is that maybe I was paying for my earlier sins is for being a lawyer. But it's, I realized that I was still able to use the skills of lawyering, advocacy, governance in the area that I was in, and be able to put them to good use. And I found that that was the way of volunteering. It's funny, you know, because I didn't think of it as volunteering at that point in time. Because volunteering to me at that point in time was, you know, these amazing folks who really frontline it. They're the ones who do the food delivery. They're the ones who spend the time with the seniors and the kids with special needs. They're frontlining it. And what was I doing? I was sitting around a table or a committee meeting, just giving my 2 cents worth of say, which wasn't very different from what I was doing in legal practice. And one day, out of the blue, I got this long-term volunteers award from, in those days, I guess it was MCDS. And I was really surprised because I didn't realize I was a volunteer by doing something that was actually quite familiar to me. Being in an office, being in a conference room, in an aircon room. Just giving my points of view.
So it's being a full-time volunteer, something that only the wealthy can afford to do?
No, everyone can do it. If you think about it, volunteering means giving of yourself, whether it's of your own material possessions or of yourself. Honestly, I think that the most precious thing that we have, that we can give, is time. And that's the thing that many of us are loath to give. It might be easier to open up our pocketbooks and give $1, $2 to the guy in the street selling tissue paper. But giving of our time, and in Singapore, we're such busy people that probably time is one of the most precious commodities that we have. And I would say that anyone can make the effort to give of themselves by giving of their time. And that's what we need to remember, that we all have different strengths and gifts. And just being able to sit with someone and be a befriender is actually a very, very precious gift of volunteering.
So Anita, we know that as president at NCSS, you have introduced many plans, many policies, but as an individual, what have you done? Have you inspired your inner circle to do some projects along with you?
I don't know whether the word is inspire, but it's basically sharing with my friends what I do and just hoping that ignites something in them, that they want to do something. And that's happened. So many people have come forward to say, they want to do something. So what I try to do is think of the places, because what's really important is finding the right fit for the type of volunteering you want to do. It's no point force fitting someone, because if you do that, there's no sustainability in being able to volunteer. You've got to do something that you enjoy, and you can constantly really recharge yourself by doing that. So one of the most special times was really a group of friends and myself starting a little reading group for 2 blocks of 1-room flats. We did it for about 7 or 8 years. We called it Book Bus. And we did it in Sembawang, where once a month we met together to just read to kids, to introduce to kids in those blocks the love for reading. It's funny because I remember spending some time with some of their mums to try and teach them how they could read to their kids. And one mum said to me, she says, my son is not interested when I read to him. And then I discovered she was reading his textbooks to her. Her textbooks to him. And that's not what it's all about. She was thinking that if she read assessment books, textbooks, that would get him interested. But it's really just creating the love for learning and making books come alive. So we had a group of friends who did it for a number of years. And it was a wonderful group, because with that, we were able to befriend these families and get to know their challenges. In fact, one of these families, because we stopped doing this book bus about a year ago, it was very sad because one of the mums, she had a whole squadron of kids, 12 kids, I think. And she just died very recently. She was diagnosed with late-stage cancer.
Oh no.
So it's being able to really journey with the family and putting the right people there to support them through that. And it was through befriending them all those years ago that we were able to do this.
So Anita, you're definitely very on the ground. And what are the gaps that are on the ground that have yet to be addressed? What more can we do in the social service sector?
Oh, there's so many. There will always be gaps. No society is perfect. The day that we think we're perfect, that's the day we really got to be seriously worried. The gap that I see is in the area of mental health. It's early stages. There have been some support programs put into the community. I think on the health side, there's been far more. But in terms of the social and community support for mental health, I think we have a lot of work to be done in that area. And especially when I think of COVID, I think that's one of the biggest challenges that's going to come out of COVID, is because we've gone through a time which has been so stressful for so many people. The mental fallout will be something that we really need to be worried about and to think about, and how we can really journey with people through this to make them feel that they're not alone in their challenges, to help them find pathways. So it's not only financial support, it's social support and mental support as they go through this time.
So have you, within your circle of friends, I'm sure you're well connected with our political leaders, the corporate leaders? Have you, in any sense, tried to influence them to pay more attention to issues such as mental health? And how have you tried lobbying these people to be the change?
I think it's just sharing. It's sharing with people, so to make people aware that there are these needs and gaps. So it's not so much as coercing or really advocating so hard for it. I think once we plant the needs that people know that are there, there is movement for it. So in NCSS, this is one area of priority going forward, that we really support people with mental health conditions and also just mental wellness during this time. So every possibility, every chance I get, for instance, even talking to you, this is something I want to talk about. So it's advocating not only policymakers, but members of the public, so that everyone's just aware that these are the needs and the gaps. And if they can, in their small ways, do something, it's just reaching out to friends, being aware that someone that you know is going through a really difficult time, a challenging time, and showing that you're there for them. That in itself will make a difference.
And do you think our leaders in the country are well attuned with such issues on the ground?
I think they're getting better at it. I think over the last 20 years, I've realized that people are becoming more open, and there is a genuine desire amongst our society. So not just the politicians, our community, there is a genuine desire that people really want to make a difference and want to help. So I've seen that in the last 20 years I've been involved in this sector, that there is a greater openness amongst everyone. So not only the policymakers, that honestly has improved. I would say that 20 years ago, it was really challenging to try and change things, and people are far more open now. I think we're just changing with the times, and I'm just very, very inspired and by it. But there's still loads of work to be done. This is just the beginning. This is really just the beginning.
So am I right, am I fair to say that the elites in Singapore are more enlightened today?
More enlightened, but far more complex. 20 years ago, 25, 30, 40 years ago, we were really dealing with issues of subsistence. So it was rations and things like that. I mean, rations that during COVID we discovered was really important as well, because people were some were in such a difficult situation. But the needs are so much more complicated. And that's why even now, when you see the mental health challenges coming out, they weren't so evident all those years ago, because life today is just way more complicated than it was half a century ago. And so I would say that, are we more enlightened? I think with social media, there's a heightened awareness of the needs on the ground. So maybe in a way, it's easier to be able to convey these needs now, because in the past, unless you were in that area, only then were you aware of what was really needed on the ground. But now, all you have to do is put it on Instagram, Twitter, social media, and people know their needs. And we saw that coming out during COVID-19. And that's why there was such a wonderful groundswell of support that came up from the community to help out.
So Anita, have you, you're very passionate about all these issues. Have you found enough, people who are able to take over from you to champion all these issues? Are you a one-man show, or do you have a team?
Oh no, I have a
larger group of Singaporeans
team
who can help you? Yeah.
I rely on a whole bunch of people. It's not me, certainly not me alone. I'm just one of the many cogs in this whole wheel. And it's just spreading the word, and whoever I can find to help, I'll pull them in. I really will pull them in, because it's like a virus. It's a social sector virus. I hope people get infected by this virus of doing good and helping others. Yeah, it's not about me at all.
Having been in this role for past couple of years, what sort of report card, what sort of grade would you give yourself in the report card?
Golly, I don't think of it that way. I think it's for others to grade me. Actually, I would really like people to grade me, because I think that's the only way that I will know what my weaknesses are and what my strengths are. So
but if you were to give yourself a self-assessment?
I really hope it's not just a pass. I hope that people tell me to just keep pressing on, keep working at it, not to give up, and just keep trying to do better.
So I think we are running out of time.
Mm.
Perhaps one last question. Have you ever considered running for politics and to make a greater
No.
difference to Singapore?
No way, Jose.
Why not?
That's not my cup of tea. Not me. I am very happy where I am. I think I can be a sphere of influence behind the scenes this way. And so, no, politics is not for me. Never. Not my cup of tea. So I just like the space I'm in, and I'm very happy where I am.
I think it's a pity for Singapore, because if you're a candidate, I'll definitely vote for you, given your track record and your passion for the community. Thank you so much, Anita.
It's a pleasure. Great talking to you.
Thank you.